My name is Marin Vale, and I'm 27 years old. The restaurant felt like a mood board. Neon sign, marble tables, portions that looked like punctuation. Aiden brushed a crumb off the rim of his plate like he was editing the night for a magazine spread. Beside him, Caitlin and Jenna, co-workers who talked like the world was an exclusive club and they were the clipboard. Babe, Aiden said, the words soft but strategic. Try not to say you're a vet tech first. Say you work in animal health. It photographs better. I smoothed the thrifted button-down he'd insisted on, the fabric stiff under the newness. I calm scared animals and worried owners, I said. I don't know how to stage that. He smiled at his friends. She's adorable, right? So real. They laughed the kind of laugh that lets you know who's on the inside and who isn't. When the waiter came, Beck, according to the black ink name on his apron, he refilled waters and set down a plate as carefully as if it could bruise. I thanked him. That was all. Aiden clocked it, eyes brightening with the chance to perform. Look at Marin, he announced, flirting with the staff. Bold. Caitlin grinned. He's cute. Jenna tilted her head. For her, he's way out of her league. No offense, Aiden added, which is a phrase used exclusively before offensive things. But let's be realistic. I stared at the geometric smear of sauce across my salmon. I said thank you. Exactly, Caitlin said, lifting her wine. Men hear thank you and translate it to marry me. I tasted air to avoid tasting tears. Aiden kept going, the way a DJ won't let the song end. Marin gets awkward in cool places, he said lightly. They don't really get her. Jenna laughed, that fake, mean little trill. Remember that club last month? That girl walked past and hit on the guy behind him, and she thought he was... I stepped aside at the bar, I said. It was crowded. Sure, Aiden said, stage winking. We love a Delulu queen. I looked at him then, really looked. The curated stubble, the joke he was selling as intimacy, how his attention warmed a room until it needed something to burn. I used to find his confidence charming. Now it felt like a spotlight pointed at me so people could watch me squint. The check came. Beck slid it down like a secret. As he did, his hand brushed mine. Accidental, apologetic, and his eyes flicked, assessing, not pitying. Sir, you forgot this, he said, voice pitched neutral. Aiden frowned. We didn't order... It's yours, Beck insisted, eyes on me for exactly one heartbeat. Outside, while Caitlin and Jenna posed against the neon sign as if proof of attendance could be digested, I slipped the small, folded paper from the leather billfold. Aiden was still performing, lining up the night for a carousel post. Beck totally had a crush on you, he said. Cute. I should tip extra for your ego. I unfolded the paper. Before I could read it, Aiden plucked it from my fingers, smirking. Oh, is this one of those call me receipts? That's adorable. He read. The smirk evaporated. His face did something I'd never seen it do, lose its lines. What? Jenna said, leaning in. What does it say? It's nothing, he snapped. Give it back, I said. He crumpled it and shoved it at me like a bad magic trick. I smoothed the creases. Hey, I recognize your boyfriend from Tinder. He was at my friend Kayla's place last Tuesday when I stopped by. Same shirt he's wearing now. Thought you should know. You seem like a kind person who deserves better. Beck. The air went thin, like we'd walked too high up a mountain without noticing. Kayla, I said, your ex. That's a lie, Aiden said, already selecting a tone from his collection. He's a server. He wants a reaction. People do this for sport. Last Tuesday you worked late, I said. I did, he said quickly, and then I stopped by a friend's. Your ex, I said, in the same shirt. Caitlin and Jenna had gone very still in the back seat, their faces turned mirror blank, like a screen that had lost input. Can we talk about this at home? Aiden asked, voice low. You're making a scene. No, I said. I pulled the car to the curb. The city moved past us, uninterested. Get out. He laughed, then realized I wasn't. Marin, be serious. Get out, I repeated, my voice so calm it startled me. All of you, order an Uber. You can't be over a note from some random guy? The note isn't why I'm done, I said. It's just the proof. Silence layered the car. For a second, I almost apologized to it. Aiden lifted his hands. Surrender as theater. Fine, he said. Enjoy your small life. Caitlin and Jenna spilled out first, heels biting the curb. Aiden got out last, leaning into the open door with a final attempt. You'll regret this, he said, quiet and venomous. Guys like me don't circle back. Good, I said, and shut the door. I drove 2 blocks, then pulled over and rested my forehead against the steering wheel. The paper shook in my hand. Kayla, Tuesday, same shirt. A simple equation. It solved itself. At a red light, I texted myself a note. Change locks, pack his things, don't argue, facts only. The city glowed red back at me, like a warning and a benediction. At home, the apartment felt like an alibi. I emptied the top drawer he used, chargers, cufflinks that never seemed to attach to accountability, a bottle of cologne that smelled like borrowed confidence. I packed it all into 2 boxes and stacked them by the door. I didn't cry. Not then. It wasn't numbness. It was clarity. Grief would come later, polite and punctual, but that night there was only the work of ending. I set the crumpled note beside my keys and read it once more. A stranger had chosen kindness over comfort. That felt like a door opening somewhere I hadn't noticed there was a wall. I slid the chain across the lock and exhaled into a room that finally exhaled back. Morning arrived like a witness who had already made up its mind. I made coffee, opened the blinds, and wrote a list on the back of yesterday's takeout menu. Change locks, boxes things, facts only. By 9, the locksmith was twisting a new cylinder into the door. Trouble? He asked, routine curiosity. Correction, I said. Just getting the door to tell the truth. I stacked Aiden's life into 2 banker's boxes, the cufflinks that never fastened accountability, the gym bag that lived more in selfies than sweat, the essential pour-over he bought to photograph but never cleaned. I placed the folded note on top as if it were an itemized receipt. At noon, the first text arrived, then the flood. Aiden, you believed a stranger? Seriously? He's a server looking for drama. People do this. Kayla's just a friend. We talked about us because you've been distant. This is your fault for checking out on me. I didn't reply. The message bubble multiplied like mold in a damp corner. Aiden, fine. I was at her place. To get closure, nothing happened. You're blowing up our life over a rumor. I'm coming to get my stuff. Leave the chain off. I texted one sentence. Your boxes are by the door. I'll hand them to you. He arrived 20 minutes later with the weather of a man rehearsing outrage in a rearview mirror. He tried the handle. It stopped at the chain. You changed the locks, he said, as if I'd burned a flag. My lease, I said. My right. That's illegal. It's not. I lifted the boxes into the chain gap so he could see them. Everything's here. He leaned toward the crack, voice lowered to intimacy as threat. Let me in, Marin. We need to talk without you performing. I stared at the tiny triangle of his face. Performing is your field, Aiden. I work with animals. When they're scared, I don't corner them. He laughed without humor. Wow, a metaphor. Since when did you become clever? Since I ran out of patience. He switched masks, the way he always did. Anger to wooing in one swipe. Look, I messed up. You're the most stable person I know. Kayla is chaos. I felt flattered, that's all. I thought I needed to feel seen, but none of it means anything. It means you lied, I said. And before you say one mistake, it's not the first time you eroded me in public to make your friends laugh. A shadow crossed his face. You're being dramatic. The salon dinner, the club story, last night's routine. They're not jokes when the punchline is my dignity. Silence. He eyed the boxes as if they might apologize for me. You'll regret this, he said, quiet now. Men like me don't circle back. I'm counting on that, I said, and closed the door. The chain slid home with a clean, decisive sound. I pressed my palm against the wood until my breath caught up to my body. By afternoon, the smear campaign had launched. My phone pinged with screenshots from Teresa at the clinic. Teresa, you should see what he's posting. Setting boundaries with controlling partners. Moving on from emotional abusers. Want me to stop reading it? Me, no. Just save whatever you see. Receipts. The clinic number flashed next. Teresa again, voice edged with disbelief. Heads up. Someone claiming to be your ex called the front desk to warn us you're unstable. Dr. Morrison handled it. She said, and I quote, my technician stabilizes 90-pound shepherds with a whisper. We're fine. I nearly applauded. Relief lifted and settled like a bird on a wire. Thank you. At 5:03 p.m., a new message slid into my Instagram request folder. Beck Carter. Hey, this is Beck from the restaurant. I know this is weird, but I wanted to check you're okay. I saw some posts from your ex. They looked cruel. I stared at the name. The note in my palm felt suddenly heavier and lighter at once. Me. Thanks for the heads up, and for the note. It helped me make a decision I should have made sooner. Beck. I debated passing it along, but he kept performing. I figured you deserved unedited information. A beat, then another message. Beck. Also, FYI, he's been back. With Kayla, loud about their upgrade. My manager had to ask them to keep it down after they started bad-mouthing you by name. I told him to rotate their table out of my section. Me. Thanks for the warning. There was a pause, long enough to be respectful, short enough to feel intentional. Beck. Random question. Do you like coffee? There's a place near the university with ridiculous lattes. Totally no pressure. You just seemed like someone who could use a quiet hour without audience participation. I stared at the message, chest startled by how gently it landed. I typed, deleted, typed again. Me. Is this a date or a friend thing? Either is fine. Clarity is kinder. Beck. Let's say coffee first. If you hate it, we high-five and call it a successful beverage. I laughed. Actual sound in my quiet apartment. Rune, the shepherd mix I didn't have yet but kept imagining, was still a month away, but the room felt like it had already made space for something soft. Tomorrow at 4, I typed, after my shift. Deal, came back. I'll be the one not wearing the same shirt as last Tuesday. I set the phone down, and the relief surprised me. Thin, but real, like the first sip of water after a long line at the DMV. Not romance, not rescue. Just the possibility of a conversation without choreography. At 7, the second wave of Aiden's strategy hit. Mutual friends sliding into my DMs with neutral voices. He says you're jealous. He says you're trying to ruin his job. He says you're unstable. I replied with the same sentence to each. I won't argue with his story. Here are screenshots of mine. Then I stopped answering. Silence can be a scalpel. I needed mine sharp. Before bed, I reread the text, took photos of the boxes by the door, saved the locksmith receipt, cataloged timestamps, a paper fortress against a man who treated truth like wet clay. I wasn't planning to fight forever. I was planning to finish. Just after midnight, another number appeared. Unknown. Tell your little waiter to stop spreading lies. Kayla and I are happy. You look pathetic, clinging to a pity note. I typed nothing. I blocked, then wrote one line in my notes app. Tomorrow. Coffee. Not a cross-examination. Breathe. Outside, the street hummed the way the city does when it's too tired to pretend. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was auditioning for my own life. The new lock clicked when I turned it. Such a small sound for such a large decision. Sunday smelled like rain-soaked pavement and espresso, the kind of morning that almost makes you believe in second drafts of life. I stood outside Elm Street Cafe, tracing my finger along the condensation on my cup until Beck appeared. He didn't lead with charm, just a small smile and a quiet, "Glad you came." I noticed he didn't reach to hug me, just nodded, like he understood that my skin still remembered being cornered by words. "Did you walk?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, "needed the air." "Same. Coffee's better after distance." We sat by the window. For a while, conversation was small. Safe things like pets, weird customers, late-night TV. He told me he worked nights at the restaurant and days finishing nursing prereqs. "I like helping," he said a little shyly. "People, animals. It's the same skill, just different heart rates." I laughed. That's what I tell people about my job. Only difference is my patients bite when they're scared. He smiled. "People do too. They just use smaller teeth." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was restful. I realized how rare that was. Aiden's silences had always felt like verdicts waiting to be delivered. This one felt like exhale. "Just so you know," Beck said after a moment, "I didn't tell you about Kayla to cause trouble. My friend's place is kind of a revolving door, and when I saw your boyfriend in that shirt again, something clicked. You just looked trapped, and no one deserves to be humiliated by someone who claims to love them." "Thank you," I said quietly. "You didn't owe me that." "Maybe not," he said, but it didn't sit right to stay quiet. When we parted, he didn't ask for a promise, just said, "Text me if you ever need to vent about bad coffee or worse men." Monday morning. The clinic was already humming when Teresa poked her head into the break room. "Marin, brace yourself. We've got a walk-in. You're not going to believe who it is." The way she said it made my stomach drop before I even stepped out. Aiden. He stood in the reception area holding the leash of an elderly toy poodle that looked like it belonged in a retirement home for small clouds. He didn't look at me at first, just stroked the dog's head, voice low. "This is Fluffy. She belongs to Kayla's mom." Of course she did. "Dr. Morrison asked me to take the case," I said, all professionalism, clipboard in hand. His eyes finally met mine, searching for an opening, a weakness, a memory. "You look tired," he said. "Not sleeping?" "I sleep fine," I said. "Please bring Fluffy to exam too." Inside, Dr. Morrison examined the poodle, murmuring gently while I took notes. Every time I looked up, Aiden was watching me, mouth parted like he was holding on to an unsaid monologue. When the exam finished, Dr. Morrison handed him the prescription slip. "Just some antibiotics. Marin will explain the dosage." I stepped forward, keeping my tone even. "Twice a day, with food. Follow up in 2 weeks. Any questions?" He hesitated. "Yeah, can we talk alone?" "About Fluffy?" I asked. "No, about us." Dr. Morrison looked up from her chart. "That's not an appropriate discussion for my clinic." "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said quickly. "I just need closure." "You had closure," I said. "You mailed it to me through a stranger's note." His face flinched at that. "Marin, please. Kyle's not who you think he is. Kayla isn't either. I made a mistake." "I know," I said simply. He blinked. "Then can't we—" "No," I interrupted. "You wanted an audience. You've got one, but I'm not performing anymore." Dr. Morrison cleared her throat pointedly. "Mr. Cross, if there's nothing else regarding the animal, you should head to checkout." Aiden's jaw tightened. "You'll regret treating me like this. Someday you'll realize stability isn't exciting. It's just lonely." I wrote on the chart without looking up. I'd rather be lonely than humiliated. He lingered 1 second too long, then turned sharply and left. The door chimed behind him, a tiny, ridiculous applause. Teresa appeared a minute later, grinning. "You good?" "Yeah," I said. "Fluffy too." That evening, I sat on my couch, staring at the empty corner where his things had once been. The apartment still held echoes, faint outlines of habits, his cologne on the coat hook, the dent in the couch where he used to sit. But they were ghosts now, harmless and fading. My phone buzzed. A message from Beck. "How was Monday?" I smiled. Eventful. A poodle named Fluffy, an ex with boundary issues, and a prescription for antibiotics. "That sounds like 3 separate sitcoms," he replied. "Want to add a coffee sequel next weekend?" "Maybe," I wrote. "No promises, but maybe." The typing bubble lingered, then disappeared. A minute later, another text appeared. "Take your time. Peace isn't a race." I set the phone down, looked around the room that finally belonged entirely to me, and realized something. Silence isn't always absence. Sometimes it's proof you've survived the noise. Outside, thunder grumbled softly, like an old dog in its sleep. I made tea, turned on a lamp, and felt the first calm that didn't need to be explained. 3 weeks later, peace felt like a habit I was learning to trust again. It wasn't loud or cinematic. It was the kind that lived in small, ordinary places, between the whir of the coffee grinder and the sigh of the kettle, in the soft space where no one was waiting for me to perform. Aiden had gone quiet online, or maybe I'd just stopped looking. His posts used to appear like ghosts in the algorithm, filtered dinners, mirror selfies captioned growth, recycled quotes about resilience that felt like thinly disguised blame. Now they were gone. Maybe he'd found another audience, or maybe he'd finally run out of scripts. Either way, I didn't care. Work was steady. Dr. Morrison had started letting me handle more complex cases, and Teresa joked that my zen voice could calm a hurricane. Sometimes, when clients left thank you notes with paw prints drawn in the corners, I'd tuck them into the back of my planner, where Aiden's texts used to live. Proof that kindness, too, could leave evidence. And then there was Beck. Our coffee meetups became a quiet rhythm. No promises, no expectations. Some days we talked about work. Other days, we just sat in silence, watching people hurry by. Once, he told me about his dad's heart condition and how that pushed him toward nursing. Another time, I admitted that after the breakup, I caught myself rehearsing every text before sending it, like I still feared the wrong word could explode a moment. He didn't try to fix it, just said, "You're allowed to unlearn fear at your own pace." He never asked what I was to him or what we were becoming. That, in itself, felt like freedom. One Friday evening, I came home to find a small cardboard box on my doorstep. For a second, my stomach clenched. Old reflex. But the return label was from a rescue shelter. Inside was a timid shepherd mix, part fur, part hesitation. Her tag read, "Rune." They'd gotten my name from a volunteer list I'd signed months ago. I'd forgotten about it. When I bent down, Rune sniffed my hand, tail flicking like a cautious metronome. "Hey, girl," I whispered. "You and me both." By night, she was asleep at my feet, snoring softly like someone who'd finally found safe ground. A week later, Caitlin messaged me. We hadn't spoken since that humiliating dinner. "I owe you an apology," she wrote. "What we did that night, it wasn't funny. Aiden's been trying to rewrite what happened, but seeing how calm you stayed after everything, you made him look small just by surviving it. I hope you're doing okay." I stared at the message for a while, then replied, "I'm doing better than okay. Thank you." One afternoon, Beck dropped by the clinic with takeout and Rune's favorite treats. "Bribing both of you," he said, smiling. "She's already more loyal than most people I've dated," I said. "Low bar," he teased gently, then quieter. "You seem lighter." Maybe I finally stopped mistaking peace for boredom. He nodded, eyes warm. You'd be surprised how many people confuse noise for love. Rune barked once, as if to agree. We ate on the clinic steps, the late sunlight turning everything gold. No grand declarations, no movie-ending kiss. Just two people learning that calm can be enough. When he left, he said, "Next time, bring Rune. I think she's the real reason I keep showing up." That night, I sat by the window, watching the city blur into reflections. The note from Beck, creased, faded, still folded neatly, rested in my drawer. I hadn't framed it like a trophy. I kept it as a compass. Not because it exposed Aiden's lies, but because it reminded me that truth has quiet allies. Sometimes they're strangers who risk a small kindness. Sometimes they're the parts of yourself you'd forgotten could speak. I turned off my phone, poured tea, and let Rune's breathing fill the silence. Aiden once said stability was lonely. He was wrong. Stability isn't lonely. It's honest. It's earned. It's the sound of a door closing without anyone pounding to be let back in. Weeks later, Beck texted a photo of a dog he'd seen on his walk, ears too big for its head, tongue hanging out like it hadn't yet learned modesty. "Name him yet?" I asked. "Not yet. Thought you'd have ideas." "Chaos," I typed. "You could use a reminder of what you survived." He sent back a laughing emoji, then, "I like that, but maybe I'll call him Rune Jr." I smiled, looked at the sleeping dog at my feet, and whispered, "We did it." No fireworks, no revenge, just the quiet, satisfying click of life moving on. Sometimes the worst nights lead to the gentlest mornings. Sometimes the person you need to thank isn't the one who hurt you, it's the one who handed you the truth in a folded piece of paper.